Right, I think we're now live. Sorry for delay today. I switched my live streaming setup from pure OBS to OBS Streamlabs and discovered that it was set to stream to another channel. So it took me a few minutes to get the tech set up. But now we've got the tech set up. I can see some messages starting to come through in the chat. And James Basha, question, what's the topic for today? And for me, live streams a bit, what comes up? If good questions start to come, I answer them. If questions don't start coming, I just keep talking until I see what interesting things come to my mind. One of the great joys of teaching is you get people who listen. And I often find that some of my great ideas come when I'm forced to try and express an idea. And in a way, these days where I'm not going up to IESE Business School, I'm not speaking on the stage in front of groups of 100 or 70 in a class of MBAs, I need this live interaction to force my brain to think and to get clear. So let's see what we've got questions coming in. We've got from Mexico, we've got from Germany, Abir. Abir, great to have you on here sharing the light. I don't know if you can see on the shelf here behind, there's a little purple statue. I'll go grab it. Now, this is my little statue that I made out of plasticine in San Diego in January. And this little object represents something that when I was with Abir in Washington in San Diego, we talked about sharing the light and this idea that each of us, each of you who are listening to this live stream, has some light to give out to other people. And you can keep that light within, you can keep your encouragement within, you can keep your praise within, or you can make a decision that you're going to give your light to others. And Abir and a number of other people have been very motivating to me in this idea of sharing the light. And sharing the light to me can be as simple as just being encouraging. But often, if you have a good idea, if you have a way of making this world better, start to speak about it, start to write about it, start to put your ideas out in the world. Don't wait. And if you don't have a blog, start a blog. If you don't have a Twitter account, start a Twitter account. If you don't have a YouTube channel, start a YouTube channel. Start making videos, start getting positive messages out there into the world. So we got Johannesburg, we've got Azerbaijan. Hello, Azerbaijan. We've got Jordan. Hey, Ravi. So we've got Ravi on here. Ravi runs a channel called Goals Driven Life. I had the wonderful opportunity to meet with Ravi a couple of months ago when you could still travel and have a coffee together. And we talked about his channel, Goals Driven Life, and how he's sharing his light in working with others to help them become goal-oriented in their lives and set a clear structure and go for it. Abir, oh, kind words, share the light team. Reino from Finland, hey Reino, I saw we had you on the IESE channel recently. Shafi, Riyadh, Algeria. So if there's no questions coming up in the chat, so we got Christian Aiden Ueth. What do you think about the European economy after coronavirus? That's a good question. We can touch on that. If there's any other questions, what I was thinking about recently was the idea of culture. And there's a story that I'm going to take this opportunity to share with you about how different cultures vary in the world. We've got how do you organize and control words in negotiations? Vision post-corona. So good, we've got some thinking about the future. Well, let's switch over to our talk cam here. And what I wanted to share with you is a story that this is my way of understanding national cultures. And if you go back 10,000 years and look at what was the cereal crop in any region of the world, it gives a clue to how the culture is today. Because how you deal with someone in China, how you deal with someone in Ireland, how you deal with someone in the United States will change, because there's a number of ways that a culture shapes the way, our stance towards the world. And the way that I find interesting to convey this in simple terms is if you look at the cereal crop of 10,000 years ago in a region, it gives you a lot of clues as to how that nation or how that country is today. So 10,000 years ago in Asia, in China, the cereal crop was rice. 10,000 years ago in the south of Europe, the north of Africa, the cereal crop was wheat. And 10,000 years ago in the north of Europe, in the Germanic, outside of the Roman Empire, was hunting and very seasonal fruits and vegetables. So let's look at what you need for a crop of rice. And what you need for a crop of rice is the entire village, 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day in the fields, working the dams, working the roots, treating the plants well. And if you have the entire village in the fields 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, at the end of the season, you have food for the village. So all of the institutions of China and of Asia come from a world where one individual alone cannot produce a crop. Only the entire village together. If I can count on you, together we can survive. The whole village can be strong enough to deal with whatever the universe throws at us. And a lot of the institutions of China, the way the government gets into the home. So, here I'm someone who was brought up in the European worldview. The idea of the one-child policy in China, that the government can tell me how many children that I can have, can get into my home. From a European perspective, that feels very strange. But if the institutions are built on the cereal crop of rice, if 10,000 years ago your son decided he wanted to spend a year to find himself and wasn't going to work in the fields of rice, that put my future at risk. So your son or yourself don't get to spend 2-3 years thinking about yourself. My future, my family's future depend on you and your whole family doing the work. So in China, this idea that the village has a right to your labor. The village has a right to control to a degree, because if we don't, the village's future survival is at risk. So there's a lot of perspectives from Asia that you've got to think that the only way that villages survived is when they could count on every single person pulling their weight. In the north of Europe, where hunting was the main food source, one good hunter could provide food to the whole village. And one good hunter, a hunter cares deeply about skills, because the more skilled you are, the better tools you have, the more wisdom you have about where to hunt, about how to hunt, about who to hunt with, the more effective you're going to be. Hunting also teaches you to be pragmatic, because if you go out to hunt and at 9 a.m. you catch a wild pig, you come home. You don't continue hunting, because if you catch 2 wild pigs, the second one is going to rot. So the north of Europe, very much one individual is capable of providing for the whole village. One individual who's skilled, who's wise, who's made the effort to have good tools, can really make a difference to the survival of the whole village. But it's also very pragmatic, because once you've caught enough meat, you come home, because it's just going to rot if you catch too much. And that's the systems and the culture of the Anglo-Saxon world, the Germanic peoples, the Anglo-Saxons outside of the Roman Empire. And then we look at where I live now, Barcelona, and the north of Africa and the south of Europe, the cereal crop was wheat. What do you need for a crop of wheat? What you need for a crop of wheat is that the rains fall when they should fall, the sun shines when it should shine. There's a word in the north of Africa that doesn't exist in the English language. If you ask someone, will we have a good crop this year? The answer, inshallah, God willing. If you ask someone in Spain, will we have a good crop this year? How will our revenue be this year? There's another word that doesn't exist in the English language. Ojalá. Ojalá is God willing. It's beyond me. If the circumstances allow. And in Spain, if you imagine 10,000 years ago, a farmer in Andalusia, a farmer with his farm of wheat, and that farmer decided that he wanted to make a better life for his family and his future generations, and he decided he was going to go work harder in the fields. Because essentially for wheat, you just throw the seeds in the crop, you cross your fingers and you wait. And there's nothing a human being can do in the time between planting and reaping the crop that really makes a difference to the crop. You depend on the universe. And this attitude to life, ojalá or inshallah, of it's bigger than me. It's bigger than me, even if I'm in the company of a whole village. The way you take a stance towards life when there are things that are bigger than us is different than in the north of Europe, where one person believes that they can control their whole destiny, or China, where not one person but a group together can control their destiny. Spain, the north of Africa, is a sense that a human being is a small creature, and there are forces in this universe greater than one single human being. There are forces in this universe greater than even the whole town or whole city together. Which, 10,000 years ago, if this farmer in Andalusia set out into his fields in the middle of August to work harder, and his neighbors said to him, it's going to make no difference, none of your work will affect it at all, you're just going to get burnt, they would have been right. None of his work would have served for any purpose. He would get burnt and his crop would just be the same depending on the weather. And different cultures today, those cultural institutions and beliefs and stories that come from that way of living so long ago. Chinese stories are about the power of a village all together, that no one person is more important than the village. Northern Europe stories about the hero, one single individual that changes everything, that goes and gets fire from the heavens and brings it back. And in Spain, in the north of Africa, it's a lot of stories of how to accept that the universe is bigger than us. And I think right now with the coronavirus, the people that really struggle to make sense of it are those that come from the Northern European idea that one person, one human being is big enough and skilled enough to overcome anything that comes. Coronavirus is something bigger than any single human being. It's bigger than any single town, any single city. Coronavirus, maybe together as the entire of humanity, we can overcome this. But there's a part of it that it's like the wheat crop, that we've got to make sense of it, knowing that there's very little that me as an individual can do to really make a difference. I can donate money, I can work to not be part of the problem, I can stay home to not allow my body to be part of the transmission of the disease. But I think where your idea of success is coming from a Northern European cultural background, where success is your individual skills, and if you're skilled, you'll be able to get results. And there's almost a connection that if I do the work, I get the result. It's a very difficult philosophy to sustain when we're in the crisis that we're in right now. Because the revenues of your company, the revenues of your business for this year are not going to depend on your work. They're going to depend very much on how coronavirus plays out and affects the world that we're in. And for me, there's a saying from the Bhagavad Gita, a Hindu saying, which is, we have a right to our labor, not the fruits of our labor. And this is an attitude or a stance towards life that is not the Anglo-Saxon attitude to life. The Anglo-Saxon attitude to life, in a way, is if I do the work, I deserve the rewards. Right now, I find that I live in a balance between the two. I spent enough of my formative years as a child growing up in Ireland, as a teenager growing up in America, to really have inculcated into me the Anglo-Saxon success view that if I do the work, I deserve the return. But for me, I've lived now 18 years in Spain, 18 years in a society that doesn't deeply believe. The institutions are not around an idea that one single individual can make or break their success. It's a society which is much more accepting that what you have is far less to do with whether you're a good or a bad person, whether you're a productive or unproductive person. It's a lot to do with luck, a lot to do with a good set of circumstances and the environment helped you along the way. And I find that my time in Spain has helped me become far less narcissistic, far less arrogant, far less egocentric, and more accepting of these ups and downs as we go. And I think different cultures have different levels of power in being able to deal with change and crisis on the scale of coronavirus. So there's something I was thinking about, that how different countries have responded to coronavirus. China, the lockdown, people got into it, and we can say that it's a police state, it's a dictatorship. But I think it comes 10,000 years from institutions that believe that the village depends on being able to count on every person. Europe, the South, people are very accepting of the change. I'm not a success or a failure because I earn a lot or earn little. I worry about the north of Europe and the US attitude to life, where there's a deep-centered belief that if I do the work and I'm skilled, I'll get the reward. And the reward is a demonstration of if I'm a good person or a bad person. What I'm trying to do at this stage is really go back to that Hindu attitude, that what I can focus on is the quality of my labor. And if the pride I get from my life comes from deep pride in the quality of the work, the quality of the sharing, the quality of the encouragement, the quality of helping others get clear about who they are, where they're going, the results may or may not come. But if I focus on doing my work well, then I'll be motivated in good times and in bad, when results come and when they don't. And that's a shift that I'm trying to really make sure that I keep that mindset as we're going through the time right now. Because otherwise, if motivation, and my source of motivation in my first 2-3 companies as an entrepreneur, when revenues grew, I felt motivated. When revenues dropped from one month to the next, I would question, what am I doing? I'm wasting my time. This is a waste of my effort. And I find now the way I'm facing this crisis as a business, and my company's revenues are down 30% from March to April. We just closed our taxes for the first 3 months, the first quarter of 2020, and we've got good results for January, February, March, but my provision for April, May, June is at least a 30% drop in our revenues. And making sure I don't fall into my old bad habits of thinking that the measure of whether I'm successful is the revenue. The measure of whether I'm successful is the outcome. It's not. The only measure that I have control over is the quality of my labor, how much I put quality into the projects that I decide to do, quality into the conversations that I allow to have. And I think there's an idea that in a garden, if you just spend all day meditating on flowers, no flowers come. What a gardener has to do is put their hands into the mud, into the dirt. And if you work the muck and the dirt, flowers come. Flowers are something that arise out of the process of working the dirt. If you focus on the flower, no flowers come. If you focus on getting your hands dirty, magnificent flowers come. So let's go back to our chat cam over here. I saw some good chat flowing going up. Where are we in the chat? India, Navalan, hello from India. Algeria, New York City, hey, New York, I'm thinking of you. I spend a week every June in New York, and I can't imagine what it must be like to see New York streets shut down of people and of traffic. I'm crossing my fingers that in New York you get the flattening of the curve, get through this process. Brazil, Silas, tudo bem? Lisbon, tudo bem? What will the world be like after coronavirus? I think we're going to have to get into this question. Wahida, France. Netherlands, Sam. Jim from Arizona, great to have you on here. Jagannath from India. Philippines, the power of many is never like one. And I guess sometimes I've often thought we need a common enemy to bring us together. We've certainly got a common enemy in the coronavirus. Florian, great to see you on here. Harshad, how's the journaling going? You should be on 10 days now of it. Mohammed, Syria. Now, Syria, you guys have learned how to deal with tough times. I wonder what lessons you've taken from the last few years of how to handle yourself, how to get through tough challenges that are often none of your making. Mohammed, is there any reward for good? Oh, that is a good question. Well, let me see if I can do so this is a deep question. Mohammed, is there any reward for good? And I guess this comes down to each of us tells ourselves a story about our life. And sometimes we're aware of the story we tell ourselves about the life, and sometimes we're not aware. But there's a story that I have over what my life is about. And if my belief that life is a test, and I'm being tested, and if I pass, I go to a good place, and if I fail, I'll go to a bad place, that will certainly be a perspective I'll take into everything that I do and everything that happens to me. There's a perspective I could take that life is a roller coaster, that there's ups and there's downs, and you're going to have ups, you're going to have downs. The only way on a roller coaster you get that exciting down is the scary bit of up. And life comes with ups and downs. If your story about yourself is, if I do good, I will get a reward here in this life, then that's a tough one. I think that there was a podcast I heard years ago from a guy called Conor Neill. And what he talked about was peace of mind. And he talked about that the only type of peace of mind that is actually of any use is unconditional peace of mind. And that whatever your story is, whatever your way of talking to yourself, whatever you believe success is, you need to be very sure that it gives you more and more, as you practice it, unconditional peace of mind. And I think unconditional peace of mind, if my peace of mind is because I have enough money, I have enough health, I have enough friends, I have a business that has a future, if I lose any of those, I'm going to lose my peace of mind. And I'm going to lose peace of mind just when I need it. I think back in 2002, 2003, I first started as an entrepreneur. And my aim as an entrepreneur was to sell the business. My objective when I was 29 years old was to have 30 million euros in the bank by the time I was 42. And there's some reasons why I picked the age 42 and some reasons why I was 30 million in the bank age 42. And that was, in a way, that the story I told myself through my 30s of what success and failure, rewards, what a good life is about. And what I told myself was success is entirely measured based on what's in the bank account in 15 years' time. And all of the decisions I took from 29 for the next few years really were based on, does this get me quicker to 30 million in the bank? And my eldest daughter was born when I was 33 years old. Many nights I was at the office and I had a decision. Do I stay one more hour and finish off a proposal to send out to earn more revenue? Do I stay for another hour to work with some of the team on some of the projects we're working on? Do I go home now where I can see my daughter and read her a story before bed? Do I go over to the business school and listen to a talk that maybe I'll learn something that will be of value in future, or just be an enriching experience? And the decision I always took, 29, 30, 31, was to stay late, send the proposal, sell more, be more busy, be as productive as possible. And my whole defining idea was to get to 30 million in the bank, and that would be success, and that will mean that my time has been useful and my life will have been worthwhile. And from 2003, 4, 5, 6, Spain just grew. It was one of the fastest growing economies in the world. So all the messages coming back from my company's revenue, from how much my shares were worth, was that what I was doing was generating reward. And very often the quality of my work wasn't very good. It was enough to get the revenue, but not work that I would say, look, this is my work, this represents me. It was enough that I could get the revenue. And for many years that worked, and for many years that was a source of motivation, because each month revenue grew. But 2008, in September 2008, when Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, our revenue dropped from $500,000 a month to zero. And my self-esteem dropped to zero. My feeling of whether I was a worthy human being dropped to zero. And just when the team around me, my clients, my suppliers, needed somebody to be a force of energy, of positivity, of having creative ideas, is when I was most empty. And ever since then, I've thought I need to rig up my psychology so that the harder things get, the more motivated I get. Because that's the only way you can be as a leader. When the world's going well, no one needs you to be motivated. Everyone else is motivated. You can be... The ideal leader is someone who is depressed and annoyed when everything's going well, and when we're really facing challenge, gets so excited. And I think that needs to link down to a story that you're telling yourself about what the purpose of life is. My story now about what the purpose of life is, what a good life is personal growth. That a good life is one that you experience all that life has to offer. You fail a lot, you succeed a lot, you love a lot, you're let down a lot. And through all of this, you learn to see with a bigger and bigger perspective. There's a map of consciousness that David Hawkins shares. There's a link on my blog, and I'll share it under the video when we finish it, to David Hawkins' map of consciousness. And I think it very much represents to me that the journey in life of how we develop as human beings. And for me, I think I still get depressed when results don't come. I still get depressed when someone else rejects, even though the quality of my work was good. But more and more, I get motivated by hard times. I get motivated by challenges. I get motivated when things are tough. I learn the most when I'm doing something difficult. So today, we had a 10-minute delay on starting this live stream. We had a 10-minute delay because I've put a new live streaming setup on my computer, and of course I failed to test it effectively. But that process of 8, 9, 10 minutes of panic of trying to get it, connecting it, I don't want to do it again, but having lived through it, I'm more prepared for the future. And I guess that's the story that I tell myself during times of challenge. That what's happening now is preparing me, you, and all of us for greater challenges to come. And the only way we'll be ready for the greater challenges is by being fully present in living through the challenges that we're in now. And that in this coronavirus crisis, it's so important that when you feel fear, you pause and you fully feel it. When you feel scared, you pause and you fully feel it. when you feel annoyed, when you feel angry, when you feel pride, you fully feel it and you accept all of the parts of your humanity. And to me, it's not enough just to feel it. You got to write it down so that you have something to learn from, so that you can remember how you journeyed through these times. So writing down in a journal how you're feeling, what's going on, and not lying to yourself. You can lie to others, you can pretend that everything's fine to others, but the real good journal is a journal that you would have no one else read, because you're putting it into your journal the things that you're embarrassed to say, the things that you're shameful that are part of your life experience. So let's go back to our chat here. We're back to chat cam. And Rodrigo, what would you recommend for those who are planning to start a company before COVID-19 pandemia? Good question. Facing 30% shouldn't be hard. Kruth, you're right. Compared to others, it shouldn't be hard. And I guess, one of these things is, I want to talk about is this idea that it is good to relativize your own personal experience. Think, my drop of 30%, there's people who are a lot worse. But it's important to be honest with yourself that it does affect you, and not say I'm okay when you're not okay. All of our emotions exist for a reason, and evolution, if the emotion is there, it serves in some way. So I think being honest is important. Abir, thank you very much. Mahedin, Algerian from Marseille, KBN. Wahida, material success and spiritual success. So I wonder to what degree a video on LinkedIn or a video on YouTube or a video on Facebook is the arena to touch on spiritual questions. And in fact, this is something I'm thinking a lot about, that I work a lot with entrepreneurs organization in groups called Forum. I work a lot with Vistage in our Vistage groups, and we're working to solve challenges, financial, personal, projects, but in that work, there's always a spiritual dimension. In a Vistage issue processing, the second question we always ask, once we've got clear what the challenge is, the question is, why is that important to you? And we'll keep on that until you give an honest answer about what's the internal way that this thing gives meaning to your life. And I'm very wary of brochure talk. When someone says, well, I want to do this for X, Y, and Z, and I know you've just read that off a brochure. I want to know why you want to do this. What do you fear happens to you if this doesn't happen? What do you get? What do you benefit? And be honest with yourself. And sometimes for me, a realization that, in my life, I realized two of my values, two of the things that motivate me, move me, get me to do projects, prestige and status. And I don't like that that's the case. But if I lie to myself, I'm lying to myself. I would prefer that other things were a force of motivation, but clearly there's still a story in me, a set of beliefs in me. And YouTubing, it means a lot to me that I have 226,000 subscribers. But it means it to me first on a prestige, which to me is a very egocentrical, narcissistic stance. I would like it to mean something to me because it gives me a platform to share encouragement with the world, to share ideas, to put a spotlight on things that can make a difference. And maybe the benefit of Livestream is there's a real interaction. Good. Michael says 2 camera setup looks good. Joy, we're preparing for a better future. And Mohammed, can you share with us what your favorite books are from the library in the background? I can. Let me see. We can see our library in the background here. And there's a couple of things that I've put out to be obvious. So this book here, The Obstacle is the Way, and this book here, Ego is the Enemy, are 2 books by Ryan Holiday, which are books on the Stoic philosophy. Books that I've been going to in my 10-10-10 these days, picking something inspirational to read in the morning so that I'm raised up to be the best version of myself. So Ryan Holiday has 4 books all about making the Stoic philosophy of ancient Greece relevant to our times. And I think Stoics, that their approach to life is a meaningful way of dealing with things that feel difficult at the time. So obstacle is the way, ego is the enemy. We also have up here a book called The Anatomy of Peace. And let me switch over to the other camera because this book deserves a bit of a description. The Anatomy of Peace. How to explain this book? I think there's 2 books that I recommend to every human being to read. 1, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. 2, The Anatomy of Peace. And The Anatomy of Peace was given to me as a gift by my friend Jalmer. It was given to me in October 2008. I was going through bankruptcy, real problems in my family, separation from and my friend arrived, spent a day with me. We went out for dinner and he flew back and he left this book, The Anatomy of Peace. And The Anatomy of Peace is a novel. It tells a story of 2 parents and their 18-year-old son. And the parents are fed up with the son. He won't do what they tell him. And the parents drive up to a mountain retreat, to this psychological retreat center where they want their son fixed. And in the book, it talks of the story of them arriving up there and the dad, who's this authoritarian, dictatorial business leader, kind of says, "Fix my son," and begins a conversation with the people in the facility. And you realize, as you read the book, that the person who's broken isn't the son. The son is responding in the only way that he's being allowed to respond. The person that needs to do the work is the father. And if the father changes, the son will change. But if the father refuses to change, the son cannot change. And how to capture, I think the ideas of this book are very deep. There's an idea that we can relate to other human beings in 2 ways. In the box or out of the box. In the box is you are a vehicle or an obstacle to my goals. And if a YouTube channel, you subscribers, if I am in the box, I see you as mechanisms for achieving what I want, which is more subscribers for my prestige. And in the box is seeing every other human being as either a vehicle, so that they in some way can help me get something I want done, or an obstacle. They're getting in the way of a goal that I have. Out of the box is accepting that every human being has a set of dreams and goals that are as valid and as important to them as mine are to me. And whilst they can help me in pursuing my goals and my dreams, I will never subsume my set of goals on top of theirs. I will find ways of helping us both connect our goals. And in the Arbinger book, The Anatomy of Peace, it for me really landed how for the first 33 years of my life, I treated everybody else as a means to my end. I treated everybody else as either a vehicle for me achieving what was important to me, or an obstacle that was getting in my way and I needed to remove them from my path. Hopefully, since the age of 33, since first reading that book and since first really starting to become aware of whether I'm in the box or out of the box, and it's a very difficult thing because you can't tell. You can lose it so easily and end up treating the world as if you are more important for a long period of time. But I would recommend to all of you that this book, The Arbinger Institute, The Anatomy of Peace, this idea that it's not what I do, it's from what mindset is the action beginning. And an idea for me is that an act of love has to come from a place where I am seeing you as you know, what Arbinger uses the language of a thou. I'm not seeing you as an it. I'm seeing you as a thou, which is a being that is on a par with me. And if I'm seeing you in that way, then I'm not going to impose my will in such a way. And I think as a father, as a husband, as a brother, as a son, these ideas of stopping using my dad for what I needed, stopping using my brothers for what I needed, stopping asking the question, why is my dad not a better dad, and why is my brother not a better brother, and only asking the question, how can I be a better son? How can I be a better brother? How can I be a better father? What does my daughter need from me today? What does my dad need from me today? And the moment I shift over to them, I don't let go of my goals. One of the great things in your life is you will never let go of your values. They are so deeply rooted in you that just shifting the question to seeing how you can be of service to another will not cause you to become an idealist hippie that lets go of everything and just goes with the flow. You will remain rocked and core to your set of values. But for me, these exercises of pushing myself to ask, what does my daughter need from me today? What do the people on this chat need from me today? Puts me in the state of mind where instead of being in the box and being mechanistic or like a mercenary in this, I hopefully engage with a conversation in a more open way. But The Anatomy of Peace, if you haven't read that, if you've got this time of quarantine, The Anatomy of Peace by Arbinger Institute. Last year I had the opportunity to spend a day with the President of Arbinger Institute on his visit to Barcelona. And we talked a lot about the effect that book had on me, about how we can work together to get the outward mindset into schools, into universities, into families, in as broadly as possible. Because this idea, it's not what you do, it's from what state of mind that really impacts. And I think then this comes down to what the rewards are and how you measure success. If you really are taking action because you're placing other people's projects, dreams, goals on a par with yours, it's allowed me to drop my sense of whether rewards to me are the most important. So perhaps, Livestream isn't the ideal way of having a conversation about deep philosophical things. I find what I really miss is the opportunity in a class or in a forum group with EO or in Leadership Academy or in a Vistage group or in a class of the Executive MBA or the Enfocados at IESE. There's human interaction. I have an idea, someone asks a question, and as we work through the idea, I get clearer, others get clearer. You see how this philosophy could play out in your life. But let's switch back to our chat cam here. And we're coming to the last few minutes. Masad, why you wanted 30 million at 42. Now, that'll be on the next live stream. Mohammed, Think and Grow Rich. So there's a set of books that I've read in airport bookshops. So when you're going through an airport, you've got an hour before your flight and you just browse through the airport bookshop. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I've never bought the book, but I've kind of read enough of it in airport bookshops. Think and Grow Rich is another book that I've never bought, I've never owned. I've read many PDFs, I've heard a lot of people talk about it. I think the core ideas are very powerful. In fact, there is a book behind over here called The Go-Giver, which is a fable, which pretty much is around the set of attitudes to the world that Think and Grow Rich contain. I guess the rewriting of Think and Grow Rich for me in my age 47 attitude to life would be think and be of service to others. And Abir, I think They can and they can't. It depends on the meaning that we give to them. And you've got to be honest with yourself. If you know, last night at 3 a.m, I was wide awake and I was scared. I was worried about my parents, who are in the age group that would not be good if they got coronavirus. And they're in Ireland. And if anything happened, I cannot travel. I cannot see them. I cannot go and be there. I can provide support through a screen. My elder daughter lives a kilometre away, but I haven't seen her other than through a screen in almost 4 weeks, which is the longest time in her whole life that I haven't hugged her. We've spoken a lot, but last night at 3 a.m, my state of mind was fear, was worry, was scared. And at that time, I think the important thing is not to try and push it away and say, no, it's all going to work out and it's an opportunity. It's be honest. You can be scared. And being able to sit in that fear and sitting in that feeling of being scared, not react from it, not flee from it, but sit in it and feel it and live it. It's part of the human experience. And I guess my way of thinking about what success or failure is that one of the books behind this is called, I'm trying to think what it's called. It's about tennis and golf, and that a great game of golf is not a low score. A great game of golf is that for the whole 4 or 5 hours that you were out on the golf course, you were fully present. You heard the birds, you smelt the grass, you noticed the changes in the seasons. And the score is actually irrelevant. If you were present and you were fully engaged and you felt the full range of human experiences during your time out playing, that's a great round of golf. The score is irrelevant. And the worst way of playing golf is by being so focused on your score, your putting, your driving, whether the shot went where you expected, that you forget to see how the seasons are changing, the trees and the grass and the water, how the birds change the seasons, what noises are around you, how other people are carrying on. And I think this is the same in life, that it's so easy to get stuck down on 1 or 2 metrics and lose sense of the world around us, not hear the birds, not smell the roses. And for me, times of crisis is when the lessons I've learned, I try to be fully present in the fear and the worry and the concern, because I do have great worries about how economies will start up again after this. I see lots of businesses, I don't know how they're going to get through this. So I have a lot of questions. John Zimmer, Obstacle is the Way, great book. Nadine, thank you for being here. We're coming to the last minute here. Mohammed, thank you. Mohammed, whoever has been given wisdom has certainly been given much good. The best reward we can get is wisdom to live with and to share to others. So I will finish now with Carla, the author for Anatomy of Peace. Let me make sure we get that. So, The Anatomy of Peace, where's my camera, is written by the Arbinger Institute. The Anatomy of Peace. Excellent. I'm going to finish this podcast with one last message on wisdom, and we'll go back to here for our goodbye session on this fine April day. A couple of years ago, my niece, Natia, she was 14 years old, she asked me, what's the most important lesson, Conor, that you've learnt in your life? You make all these videos, you write these blogs, what's the one most important lesson? And when she asked me, I was about to give the first thing that came to my mind. And I said to her, Natia, that's a big question. Give me a couple of days and I'll come back with my answer. And after a day and a half, I said to her, Natia, I've got my answer. The most important lesson I've learnt in life is what I call the wisdom prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. And the prayer goes, give me the strength to change the things I can change. Give me the patience to accept the things I cannot change, and give me the wisdom to tell the difference. And I think if in these times of crisis and if in the times of good, we can always have this idea. There's a set of things that I have the power to change. There's a set of things that I have no power to change. I can increase my influence, but right now I cannot change them. And if I use my wisdom to focus my energy on the things that I can make a difference, then that is enough. And I can make a huge impact as a single human being if I dedicate my energy to where I can make a difference. And what I see so often in the world is people who dedicate so much of their energy to the things that they cannot change. In Vistage, we talk about politics, weather, and traffic. 3 themes that you cannot change. And if I begin a conversation over a coffee with you and I hear politics, weather, and traffic, I'll say to you, politics, weather, and traffic, there's nothing I can do to change. If you're here to talk about politics, weather, and traffic, it's going to be a very short conversation. I'm here to hear about who you are, what's valuable, what's important to you, where are you going, what decisions you're struggling with. If you're here to talk about that, we can have a good conversation. If you want to talk about politics, weather, and traffic, there's a million other people who don't want to change their life. On that note, I wish you the strength to change what you can change, the patience to stay with yourself through the things that you cannot change, and the wisdom to be able to tell the difference between these 2 things. We'll see you soon for another via camera live stream. Have a great one. And I'll also sign off from this inspiring figure, Aristotle, who is a constant mentor to my life. Have a great one. We'll switch back for one last chat review. John Harrington, great to have you here. Mag, thank you. Mutath, great to have you here. Carla, Alba, Elas, Fuad. Madav joined just now. Well, you have to watch the replay. John Zimmer, great to see you recently. Love the beard that's coming out. We hope to see you again soon on the blog, the live stream, on LinkedIn. One of the things that's coming from this period of quarantine is I'm using a lot more video than before. So thank you for being part of allowing me to learn this way of interacting with the world in a new way for me. Have a great one. And let's go to ending stream. 3, 2, 1, ending.